Quackshot on the Sega Mega Drive is one of my all-time favourite games, so when I heard that Donald Duck was making the jump to star in a brand new Nintendo 64 game back in the year 2000, I was very excited. Donald Duck Goin Quackers, or Quack Attack as it was known outside of North America, is a Ubi Soft platform game which was published by Disney Interactive. If you wanted clear evidence of just how far Disney games had fallen since the 16-bit era, then you need to look no further than this game. The game, like many Disney games of the time, is a 2.5D hybrid of a game. It doesn't want to become a fully fledged 3D game, but strays far from the 2D platforming formula which worked so well and we knew and loved. The basic story is that Donald, Gladstone and Gyro are turning into the breaking news being presented by none other than Daisy. She has found the secret lair of the evil magician Murloc and plans to expose his wicked ways. Naturally, she gets kidnapped, and it just so happens that Gyro has a teleporter to jump directly to the lair. The problem is that Gladstone wants to win Daisy's hand, and so in a stumble, he quickly enters a teleporter which leaves it without power for Donald to be sent along too. Donald must now traverse over 24 levels taking place across side-scrolling and vertical-scrolling levels from a mixture of worlds such as the forest, Duckburg, haunted house and an Aztec temple. After completing each world, you are presented with a boss battle, which then moves you on to the next area. There are also some cameo appearances along the way from Huey, Dewey and Louie, who adds a bonus level to each world and takes the shape of a chase sequence where you must outrun various obstacles. Once completed, you're also able to go back to levels you have also completed and do speedruns against Gladstone's best times on the course. The gameplay itself is extremely linear. Each level is a simple get to the end mission, and along the way there are various objects to collect such as the tokens which help to give you more lives, and toys which you must collect to unlock the Nephew's chase levels. On each level you're also tasked with finding a hidden piece of the boss crest which you must find in order to unlock the boss for each world. On the basis of this information, you think that this was shaping up to be a solid game. However, playing the game in reality is a totally different story. The level design is basic almost to an insulting degree. There are very few times when playing that the game actually becomes difficult. The basic jumping, attacking enemies and making your way through the levels lacks any real challenge and quickly turns into a basic plod through each level. Even the hidden boss crest pieces are hardly hidden, and so finding them takes very little sidetracking, and there is only one single route through each level. The game was built on an optimised Rayman 2 engine, however there is very little here to show that the game lives up to that almighty competition. Graphically, the game does make use of the expansion pack, which is an added plus. It enhances the resolution of the game and improves some of the lighting effects, which are most notable in the Haunted Mansion and Aztec levels. However, in comparison to the Dreamcast version, this still looks very poor, and the level of animation is lower than you'd find in any of the more powerful consoles. It doesn't ruin the game, however for anyone who has played any of the other games on the higher consoles will notice the sharp edges and lack of real detail in certain environments whilst playing the N64 version. However, the biggest issue for me is that the controls are quite honestly some of the worst on the system. There seems to be a very notable lag between pressing a button and the action taking place, which makes platforming a chore and often leads to cheap deaths. The side-scrolling levels are a tad easier and more enjoyable to play, but the addition of the vertical scrolling levels is a nightmare. Due to the camera position, it makes judging distances for jumps very difficult, and later in the game when pinpoint jumps are required, it leaves you feeling frustrated and angry at the game. It's also hard to tell exactly who the game was aimed at. We know that Disney platformers sold to almost everyone in the glory days of the Super Nintendo, however this time around putting Donald Duck up against the N64's heavyweight platformers seems insane. The game is too difficult for children due to the terrible controls, and yet older gamers would most likely skip this one as the classics such as Mario, Banjo and Conker are far superior. Remember, this was also a late N64 title, and so its shortcomings are not based on lack of experience developing for the console. Further detracting from the overall experience is the exclusion of the CG movies which were present in the GameCube, PlayStation, Dreamcast and Windows versions of the games. These sequences look great, and the N64's cutscenes look very poor in comparison. As a Disney-backed game, you'd expect some solid music. At least whilst I do agree that the compositions are all well constructed and performed in the MIDI fashion you'd expect from the N64, there is a certain charm lacking in the scores themselves. Disney are known for some catchy and memorable pieces of music, and what seems to have been forgotten here. the music is instantly forgettable, and whilst it doesn't detract from the game in any way, it's clear that more work should have been taken to bring the game's music and effects up to speed. Personally, it's very hard for me to recommend Donald Duck to anyone other than collectors. With so many great platformers to choose from, I can't see any particular niche interest that the game would fit. If you want a 3D platformer, then you've got many great games to choose from. If you want a 2D platformer, then there's also some great games even on the N64 to choose from. Donald Duck sits in the middle and doesn't seem to know exactly what it wants to be or who it wants to play it. But how do you remember Donald Duck? Did you play this on the N64 back in the day, or did you opt for the many superior versions on other consoles? Do you think we'll ever see another truly classic Donald Duck game in the future? Sound off in the comments below, and until next time.